So it's been almost 2 years since a critical event happened that really taught me the value of having a good relationship with food. I'm an adjunct professor at a startup university, and I had a strife with a student of ours, which almost led to me getting a bad evaluation. What had happened was I had a food craving, and I wanted to rush a student out the door to get to my favorite foods and go watch my other videos. I basically I made a bad impression on the student. Eventually, the student stayed in the program. He was threatening to drop the course. And eventually I apologized to him and I thanked him actually because he had been the catalyst to me getting over my food addiction kind of problems. And ever since then, I have liberated myself from all of these problems. I never had another episode of causing social strife with food cravings. I've had all sorts of other social strife. That was one, actually, that wasn't the biggest one I ever had, I would say. But that was the one that was the turning point where I wanted to build back better, right? Anyways, it's October 24th. I'm going on a 42-hour fast today. I thought I would review other fasts that I did in the past and lessons that I learned. I've been keeping a little bit of a diary of everything that's been going on. My very first long fast, which I did on New Year's night 2020, I was planning to do a 3-day fast. I ended up doing two. On New Year's night, I remember thinking how difficult it was because I kept instinctively wanting to reach for something. And I had to go around my apartment and my car and my office, hide all of the food, because otherwise I would accidentally break the fast. And even after I had hit all the food, my hands would still reach for stuff. And I remember thinking, all right, I might accidentally break the fast a couple of times, but at least I'll cut back on food, right? Now I woke up the second day and I felt like this huge sense of relief. I'll never be able to fully explain this. Every time I explain this to my family members, they think I'm crazy. My mom thinks I have an eating disorder. My coworkers think I'm just paranoid about it. You know, why can't I be like everybody else and eat 3 meals a day and eat with them? And unfortunately, I don't know why. Leave a comment. Why does other people's eating habits, whether they be for the better or for the worse, why do they bother you? Leave me a comment if you will. So I ended up fasting for 2 days and feeling a great sense of relief that I had so much extra time on my hands. Now, I'm not very religious, but at the beginning of Lent 2020, a friend of mine said he wanted to quit smoking and he was going to do it for Lent. Now, it made me worry because I worried that he might go back to smoking at the end of Lent. So I asked him, well, what's the reason for wanting to quit smoking all of a sudden? Because he had never thought about it. He said that we had a very brutal winter in 2020 actually here in Seattle. It hardly ever snows here, but it did that year. And he said he didn't want to go out to smoke when it was cold, which gave me even more concern because at the end of Lent that wouldn't be so true anymore. And I said, well, okay, we can try it for 40 days, but at the end of 40 days, I want to talk to you and see how it goes because, you know, I have some other goals that I'm doing for 40 days. And so I began a fast at the beginning of Lent, thinking I'll go as long as I can. Maybe not the entire 40 days, obviously, but I ended up doing 52 hours, if I remember correctly. And at the end of Lent, I asked him, well, how did your smoking go? I worried for you. And he said that he's doing great because he doesn't want to smoke anymore either because he realized how much money he saved from not smoking. And now he doesn't want to go outside of his apartment because he might catch the Chinese flu. That's what he called it. He's not very shy about being politically incorrect. And I was also fasting a lot for his so-called Chinese flu because I wanted to liberate myself from having an additional worry on top of all the precautions we had to take, right? And I felt a great sense of relief, right? The last thing I want is we can't go out because of his Chinese flu, and I'm having a craving and dealing with that, and it's bogging me down, and right, that's the last thing I want. I really felt a great sense of liberation. Now, not long after that, we had the Chaz protests in Seattle, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, and I went to that protest, and I felt very happy-go-lucky because I had gone. How many hours did I fast that time? I think at least 24 before going to that protest, and those loud noises didn't bother me. I had this lightweight feeling, and I was able to join in on the protest, talk to a few people, network with the right people, and I just felt a great sense of relief. And then we went back to work in the office for a month or two before it didn't work out anymore, right? And then I took a trip to. I started with Helena, Montana, and then I spent some time in Missoula, Montana as well. And I was able to, this was summer 2020, I was able to take long distance walks on the trail, sometimes hours, 3-4 hours at a time without being bogged down by food cravings. Just a great sense of liberation. Being able to network with people, being able to sit down at a board game club, play backgammon for several hours without being intruded by food cravings. In Missoula, at that time, they were in phase 3 already. We couldn't do that in Seattle. And then I went to Wallace, Idaho, the smallest town that I've ever lived in. I really enjoyed it. They had a festival Christmas time. Happy-go-lucky feeling. Nothing could bother me. Mingling with the locals there. And you gotta understand, over there my phone doesn't work, right? I think they only have one cell phone network. And a lot of things were difficult to take care of. But even then, I wasn't too bothered by it. I was just happy. And then we began the new year, and then we had all sorts of drama with the meltdown in the Capitol. And I remember thinking, thank God that I'm not too bothered by food cravings, and I can deal with any social unrest that might go on without being further bothered by personal unrest. I really liked it. That's the biggest benefit that I got out of fasting. And then winter melted into spring, and I really enjoyed all the new activities. Seattle had gone back to phase 3. Now I was working in person. I was still teaching remotely at the university, but I was doing a lot of tutoring in person now. And I really liked not being bogged down, right? And I really loved how I started to being able to speak for myself. When I fast, I have a tendency to lose my inhibition. Some of my tutoring clients used to walk all over me, right? Rescheduling and canceling and being very sensitive about various issues. I used to have a hard time ending the session on time because some of these tutoring clients are very sensitive. If they slightly don't like you, they leave, right? They find another tutor. Although this past year, it hasn't been so acute because a lot of people don't want to work anymore, so I kind of have a little bit of a local monopoly, right? But in the past, you don't want to be too strict with your students and leave on time and not let them cancel or what else, or you don't want to be too strict with the scheduling. If you have a difficult hour of the day but it works, you don't want to rock the boat by trying to change it, right? Because you don't know where you stand with the student. Right. But when I was fasting, those things were easier to ask for. And I didn't lose a lot of clients over asking for stuff like that. And I've learned if I lose a client for asking for stuff like that, I needed to lose them, right? That's even more important, right? Unfortunately, then we had the Delta variant, and I moved to Phoenix to ride that out, and I made a lot of connections there. And unfortunately, I made such a good connection with somebody that now that I'm back in Seattle, I feel like I left a piece of myself over in Phoenix. And depending on the situation, how it plays out, if we lock down again, maybe I'll go back to Phoenix. If not, maybe I'll go there for a Christmas vacation. And now that I can go 48 hours routinely fasting, the trips to Phoenix or lockdown situations, they just seem a whole lot more manageable, and sometimes even a little bit of fun to play with, right? In the past, they would have been panic, 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 right? All right, so I hope you're building back better yourself during these different times. Right? I wouldn't say challenging times, but different times where we get to explore ourselves a little bit more. Thanks for watching.